Welcome again, everyone. This is Conchas y Café. We are currently working on Volume 9, Issue number 2. Our theme is through the lens, meaning that we're looking at things from a variety of viewpoints, including photography and the ekphrastic exercise of creating poetry inspired by our own photography. Again, for those of you that are joining on either the Instagram Live or any of the other live streams on Twitter/X, YouTube, or Facebook, you're more than welcome to learn more about our programs by visiting distillarts.org/Conchas y Café zine. For those of you that don't know me, and I see that we have at least a couple of people who are joining us for the first time. My name is Luis Antonio Pichardo, and I'm the founder and executive director of Distill Arts. Distill Arts is a nonprofit arts mentorship organization that inspires, teaches, and hires emerging artists from underserved communities. And tonight's lesson is going to be brought to you by Abraham Jaramillo, our master teaching artist. Abraham himself is a photographer and very, very knowledgeable in the field. So, with that, I'll go ahead and pass the baton to him. And yeah, take it away.
When you said it's brought by, I thought you mentioned it's a sponsor. You're gonna say like I know McDonald's or Netflix or something like that. I'm like, oh, we got a sponsor. That sounded
Yeah, I
nice.
wish. Anybody watching out there that would like to sponsor, hey, estamos.
Kodak, Canon, Sony, come on, bring the dough.
Nikon.
So good night, people. Today we're gonna have another lecture on poetry and photography, and River might be able to catch up. She was restarting her computer, I think. But in the meantime, let's start with this because we have a lot of ground to cover. So let me start sharing a lecture, and we're gonna start. Oops. Today I brought you a photo by Barry Crosswaite. The title is Enlightened Contemplation, Ilustrado Contemplando. So we're gonna be doing the lecture in Spanish and English, so don't mind if I switch back and forth, but we'll be doing that. And for now, I want to hear from you. What do you guys think when you see this photo? ¿Qué piensan cuando ven esta foto? So raise your hand, or for the time being, you can also speak. Oh, let me see. Peace and calm, says Alex. Thank you. Okay, any more thoughts on this one? What do you guys think about this photo? ¿Qué piensan acerca de esta foto? It's thinking in time and space. Erika. Caroline, a discovery. It's also true. Luis, did you work with this pamphlet or like flyer beforehand? What do you think about this one?
Well, I just personally really enjoy the just the atmosphere that it created. Um, yeah, I kind of got the idea of solitude as
Mm,
Astrid included in the chat, and Eric also included in the chat focused clarity. That's
mm.
also a good descriptor, I think. Um, I mean, I guess because I also practice photography, I was just looking at a lot of the technical stuff too that's happening. So I really like how this
Mhm,
was executed in such a simple way.
mhm. Excellent, yeah. And Astrid said solitude, yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you guys think about the light? What is the light doing to you as the spectator or the viewer? ¿Qué piensan acerca de la luz? ¿Qué está haciendo la luz para el espectador o para nosotros que estamos viendo la foto? Like the brain is working. Like the idea of both, right? That's what you mean, right, Erica? Yeah. I think that's why he also names it enlightened. Like it's getting some knowledge, right? Like getting something that I guess we don't know.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah, I
like
think
how personally I like how it feels like us as viewers are also being illuminated by the light too.
mhm. It's kind of bringing on to us, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Caroline, I feel like the light is alluding to the subject is hiding from the outside world. That's true. I think because it's a little confined and secluded. I think that's it's a tight space, so again it gives you that sense of being secluded, right? Yeah, definitely. So I think all of you got what the photo is about. Like, that's perfect. And today we're going to be talking about light. And so before we start with the main course of this dinner, we're going to start by reviewing a little bit of the things that we learned, but also mentioning this blueprint of a photo. Have you ever heard that? Or planos de una foto. So above is the information of how Barry Crosswhite's photo was taken. So let's break it down. En español, abajo, arriba, perdón, en ese cuadrito que ven aquí, está como Barry Crosswhite tomó la foto y ahorita vamos a hacer pedacitos esta información. So as you can see on the bottom, on the top over here, it says sunny, sun, and sun. That basically is the camera that the photo was taken with. And by coincidence, that's kind of the camera that I have, which is a Sony ELC 7R RM4. And it's kind of one camera before his camera. His camera is one more new. It's a newer camera, but it's basically almost the same. And como le estaba diciendo, esta cámara que usó el fotógrafo para esta foto, esta es la información que está arriba, te está diciendo qué es eso, ¿ok? Y es como la cámara que yo tengo, nada más que una anterior de la que él tiene. Por eso en vez de M4, la de él dice M5. So again, it's MM5 instead of MM4. And same thing with the lens. Here it says FE. It's basically what we discussed last class. The one I thought was basically it's a lens that goes from 24 to 70 millimeter. And f2.8 is the maximum exposure that it has, like how much aperture the camera has. So we'll talk about aperture in a bit, but this is also the lens. And as you can see here, here's the information of the lens. I have the same lens that he used. So tengo también el mismo lente que él usó. Y aquí dice la información, que es un lente que llega de 24 a 70 milímetros. Y la máxima apertura es de 2.8. Aquí está el número, ¿verdad? Y GM es básicamente el tipo de lente, G Master. El que él tiene, como le estaba diciendo, dices, sí, GM2. So it's the second lens. Like for Christmas, you know what to get me, guys. So that's the information that we have so far here on the top. Then we're going to talk about this F thing going on. I think, hold on. I think I have one more info that I wanted to show you. Yeah, this one here. So this one is information that might be in different places. So esta es información que puede estar en otras partes del lente, pero es información que está un poco interesante. Por ejemplo, pues aquí está un poquito más, más detallado, pero se los voy a decir un poco más rápido. So the information here is basically telling you that 3.38 meters and 1.25 feet, that's where you can start focusing. That's how far you can be from the subject. So it start focusing. So como le estaba diciendo, esta información que está aquí de 0.38 metros o 1.25 pies es la información que te dice qué cerca puedes estar del sujeto para estar enfocado. Como le estamos diciendo, last time we talked about macro lenses that you can get super close to it. So this is kind of some information that tells you how far or how close you can be from the subject. And it will change depending if sometimes some zoom lenses will have two of these because depends how much of the zoom you're using. So como le estaba diciendo, otros lentes tendrán dos de estas informaciones como aquí. ¿Sí? Tiene dos que básicamente va cambiando, depende cuánto alargues el lente, pero eso no importa tanto. And here is another extra information. When you see this circle with a cross, it's basically telling you the diameter of the lens. So cuando ven este circulito con una raya, es básicamente el diámetro del lente. So this is what it's talking about, right? So eso es lo que estamos diciendo. Es el diámetro del lente, okay? So that's just some extra information so you can see when you're looking at your camera what the numbers mean, right? And as I said before, let's move on to the next information that we have here. F4.5. Okay, so what does the f.4 means? So aperture or apertura. This is how aperture works. As you can see, this is the lens, and it will be super open here and super close here, right? Como lo está diciendo, esa es la apertura. Este es un lente, y como los ojos se abre y se cierra, like our eyes, it will close and open. So it lets more light in or less light in. So deja entrar más luz o menos luz. So in order for you to know what the numbers mean, is the smaller the f stop is this, the aperture that we're talking about, more light. So as you can see, the smaller 1.4 is letting you know, and I know it's a little tricky because it feels like the opposite, but it's just the way they work with numbers, and I'll explain why. So the smaller the number for the f-stop, the more light it lets in, but less depth of field. And we'll talk about depth of field in just a bit, but I just want to continue talking about this one, right? And the bigger the f-stop, see, 8.0, the less light. As you can see, the opening is smaller, so less light. So entre más grande es el número de f, menos luz entra, pero más depth of field. So it's giving you also more depth of field, right? And this is the formula. And just because I'm curious of things, I want to know how things work. I want to tell you how and why this is the formula, right? So, como le estaba diciendo, la fórmula no la necesitan a fuerzas, pero es bueno saber por qué las cosas son como son, ¿verdad? So, F stands for focal length, which is the that we talked about the previous class. How far is the point where the focus is to the sensor of the lens, right? That's the focal length. Then D is the diameter of the entrance pupil effective aperture, basically this space here. See how much is open? And then N is basically the result of those two. And in short terms, we just, instead of N, we'll represent it as F slash, right? So this is how the math works. Basically, you have the F on top, see? It's 10 millimeters. So a lens that says 10 millimeters focal length. And we just divide it into D, which is the diameter of the aperture, right? Here. And so we end up with 2, which is kind of one of these number, right? See here. So, como les estaba diciendo, esta fórmula básicamente la rompemos fácil. Es F es la distancia focal, mm, y D es el diámetro de la apertura de la pupila del lente, como estamos viendo aquí, el tamañito que se abre el lente. Solo ponemos en la fórmula, y aquí tenemos 10, que es la distancia focal, y después lo dividimos entre el número que sea la distancia o la apertura del lente, que es en este caso 5, y con eso resulta, lo dividimos entre esto y sale 2, ¿verdad? Y el número que decimos n aquí lo representamos cuando ya estamos usando la cámara en F y una rayita, es lo que nos da la apertura. Y como ven, aquí está el 2. So básicamente es lo que estamos representando, ¿verdad? Okay, so that's it. It sounds tricky, but it's not. Any questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? I'll take your word for it. Okay.
Also,
And so,
just as a
uh,
thing to like add, if it helps you, just remember that the smaller the number
mhm,
after the F, the more light can come into the lens and be recorded. So, that's really, I think, where it's most important to understand is
mhm.
that when you're talking about any kind of camera that has a removable lens, the smaller the number, the better performance you'll have in low light conditions. Um,
Yeah, thank
when
you.
it comes
And
to
Astrid,
something,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry, Astrid had a question on if it's an iPhone. And yeah,
yeah,
iPhones kind of have a function that is like it, but it's not exactly the same.
yeah.
iPhones, I think, work more in the sensor, how the sensor captures light. And we're gonna move into that in a bit. But yeah, it is more for like more fancy cameras if you think about it. But it still applies to know some of these because some of the cameras like iPhones have features that mimic this.
Mm.
So Just to let
Yeah.
you know. So, como estaba diciendo Astrid, que también los teléfonos usan un poco de esto. No es exactamente mecánicamente lo mismo, pero usan el mismo lenguaje y usan los mismos resultados moviendo el programa para que se vea el efecto. Y ahorita vamos a hablar del tipo de efecto que puede dar esto. Um, Continue, Luis. What was the last time you were saying?
Well, I was just going to answer Astrid's question,
Oh,
and I
okay.
just wanted to just emphasize that this concept is specifically about the depth of field and how much blurriness you see behind your subject. I think that's
Mhm.
also a really good way to think about it. The smaller the number after the F, the more blurry the background is going to be behind or in front of your subject.
Yeah, and we'll move into that in a bit. Yeah, it's just I think it's good to know. Like for example, I didn't start with digital, even though I love digital more than film. But film, by knowing film, how the mechanism work, you're gonna understand how other things work because they carry the same language and some of the same principles. So no importa si tienes un teléfono o just nada más usas la computadora, es bueno saber estas cosas porque se derivan de esto y el lenguaje que usan es similar y así es como llegas a ver cómo sirve el teléfono o cómo editar fotos también. Okay. So now we have this. Let's talk about what Luis was saying. So let's see this working. So this photo, again, you can use anything to show something, right? This is my keyboard, and I took a photo, and as you can see on the bottom, como le estaba diciendo, esta foto la tomé en mi cuarto. Este es mi teclado para la computadora. Y como pueden ver, abajo está el número de la apertura. So under it is the aperture. So can somebody tell me the aperture? I just want to make sure everybody's listening. So, ¿cuál es el nombre de la apertura de esta foto? Está fácil, está fácil. Ahí está. River, you get extra points. Alex, as well. 2.8. So as you can see, 2.8, see, still, it's a good opening. It's not exactly like 1.4 is super nice, but 2.8, it's a good size. So as you can see, it has enough light because my room is dark. So como le estaba diciendo, es una buena apertura. Y mi cuarto es un poco oscuro, pero aún así se puede ver bien. Pero as you can see, you can only see end, home, and the dash here, right? In this photo. So como les puedo decir, nada más pueden ver en enfoque, donde dice home, end, y la rayita que apunta básicamente hacia arriba. Okay? So now let's move on to the next photo, which is, what is the aperture on this? ¿Cuál es la apertura de esta foto? There you go, Astrid, extra credit. 5. So that's the aperture, right? And so, if you notice, como pueden ver, se ve más oscura la foto. You can see the photo looks a little darker. So it's losing light, porque la tomé con lo mismo. Lo único que cambié fue la apertura. So I took it the same way, right? The only thing that I changed was the aperture. And as you can see, you can start seeing more of the delete. What is the other one? Says insert, or I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah,
Like
insert.
page up, page down. You can start see some of those, right? But you lost light. So that's the depth of field that Luis was talking about, right? So eso es lo que estamos diciendo, que se ve más en la cámara en enfoque, porque ya bajamos cómo está abierta la apertura, aunque el número se ve mayor, ¿verdad? Como lo estamos haciendo. It's the tricky thing. It just feels opposite, but the number, once you understand that it's just the opposite, you'll see. And so what is the next photo? ¿Cuál es la siguiente foto? ¿Cuál es la apertura de esta foto? What is the aperture on this photo? Okay, people, come on. Oh, yes, we have somebody. Wow, was faster than I. Wow. Carolyn, excellent. 9. So la apertura de esta foto es 9. Y como pueden ver, pues casi no se ve. So it's darker, right? So it's letting less light in. As you can see here, 9 is just getting, it's beyond this. So, well, this at least lens depends on the lens as well. But as the whole, it's smaller, so it's less light in, right? But we have a good trait about this. Now we can read, delete, page down, page up, insert, slash, so we can see the whole area here. So podemos ver más de la área en enfoque que con las otras aperturas, pero perdemos luz. So that's the trade. You get more light, but you get less focus, or you get less light and more focus. That is the trade. It's a balance. Es un balance que a veces tienes más luz, pero pierdes enfoque. O a veces tienes menos luz, pero ganas más enfoque. So you're going to use this depending where you are. If you're outside, you're able to do more f-stop, right? You can raise it up to more and have more of the focus, especially for landscape. You're going to prefer that. So, cuando estás afuera, vas a usar más este tipo de f-stops que viene siendo la apertura. Vas a usar más de los altos porque puedes enfocarte en más cosas, por ejemplo, paisajes. Y indoors, you want to raise it up. So, adentro van a subirla, básicamente bajar el número, ¿verdad? So that's what aperture is. Any questions for aperture so far? ¿Alguna pregunta acerca de apertura? Everybody okay so far? So this is gonna help you to get light in. So that's what we're talking about today, light. Okay? Seems like everybody's okay. Se parece que todos estamos hasta el end. So far we have covered this and the blueprint. Here, the information on the camera and the information on the lens. And now we talked about this, right? Which is the f-stop. And this is the photo was taken at 4.5, see? So it was trying to get a lot of light in still, right? But still you were able to have some of the details here. So that's good. And the next information here says 24.0 mm. And that's basically the focal length that we talk about. And this is over here is basically what the lens can do, but this is where the photo was taken. It was taken with 24, right? So we already talked about before, so no need to talk about that for now. Then we have this information. But these, I'm gonna leave it at a mystery for now because we're gonna have another class on this one, okay? But we're gonna talk about the next one, which is ISO. And this is, we talk about with iPhones and all that, it's gonna be super relevant as well. So, vamos a hablar sobre el ISO, okay? Es la parte que estamos ahora hablando. So ISO, as many, I mean, I don't know how old everybody's here, but probably have taken photos with film. Como les estaba diciendo, a lo mejor no todos son tan ruquitos como yo, pero aquí están los films, los que se usaban antes. So this is ISO, porque pueden haber diferentes tipos de rollos que podían haber usado. And vamos a discutir ahorita por qué. So we're going to discuss why we have different types of films, right? So what is ISO? ISO is the film sensitivity. Outdoor light films commonly used are 100 and 400 low sensitivity. Basically, they are not as sensible to the light, so you can use it outdoors and you'll be fine. The higher the ISO number, the higher the film sensitivity, larger the film grain size. And the grain size, basically the type of material they put that is sensitive to light. So they're gonna put more of those in the film and bigger. So they're gonna show more, right? If you plan to shoot indoors in low light conditions, films commonly used are 400, 800, or even 1,600. And to compare to digital, let's see our basically my camera, the Sony camera. What can it do, right? Because these ones you have to buy the films, right? But the camera, you're able to change the ISO. For example, my camera has this range from 50 to 1,204. Hold on, 1,002, 100, 2,400. Sorry. There you go. Took a while. And ISO means, basically what it means is International Organization for Standardization. And just to finish it up with ISO, let's cons of ISO is the higher, the more grainy your photo will be. So you want to shoot in the dark, you're going to use these films, right? The highest ISO, but they're going to be grainy. And that's in film. But when you change to digital, we're gonna call it noisy because the sensor also will create some noise, and we'll see in action a bit. So, any questions before I move in Spanish? No. Okay. On the meantime, I'm gonna speak in Spanish. This one. So, ISO es la sensibilidad de la película. Las películas de luz exterior que se usan comúnmente son de 100 a 400 de baja sensibilidad. Cuanto mayor sea el número del ISO, mayor será la sensibilidad de la película, mayor será el tamaño del grano de la película. So, usa granos de un tipo de, creo que es silver, que usa para sensibilidad de la luz. So, entre más sensible es, más se van a ver esos, ¿ok? Si planea filmar en interior con poca luz, las películas que se usan comúnmente son 400, 800 o incluso 1600. Y para compararlo con el medio digital, veamos nuestra cámara Sony ILSCE, básicamente la cámara que tengo, que puede hacer desde el rango de 50 ISO hasta 100,002,400 ISO. ¿Qué significa ISO? Básicamente significa Organización Internacional de la Normalización. No muy interesante, pero es bueno saber a veces qué es lo que significan, ¿verdad? Y una contra del ISO es cuanto más alto sea, más granular será su foto. En el caso de la película. Y en caso de la digital, será más ruido que se va en la foto. So, va a verse como granulado. So, ahorita vamos a ver el ejemplo. So far, anybody has any questions on ISO? Alguien que tenga preguntas en ISO. Básicamente es el tipo de sensor. The sensor is going to give you that range in digital cameras. It's going to have that flexibility to change from 100 to 800 and so on, depending on the phone. As you can see, here's my body here. It became my model. Skeletor se volvió mi modelo y aquí le tomé foto con mi cámara digital. So, can somebody tell me the ISO for this photo, please? ¿Alguien me puede decir el ISO de esta foto? Para saber que me están escuchando. 5 is my guess. Well, it's a good guess, Nettie, but it's not. In the bottom, it says 200 ISO, right? So as you can see, this is a low light sensitivity, right? So I mean, basically, it's not catching a lot of light, right? It's not as sensible, right? So no está tan sensible a 200, ¿verdad? Esto normalmente se usa afuera, pero está en mi cuarto, por eso se ve así. Y esto es un zoom de la cara. So this is a zoom of the face. So we're going to start see some of the difference that the ISO is going to make, right, in the photo. But at the end of the day, ISO is going to give you more light or less light, depending on what you're putting, right? So the next photo, la siguiente foto, ¿cuál es el ISO? What is the ISO? Give me the hard questions. 400, River. Thank you very much. Sí, 400. As you can see, 400, it's getting better, right? We can start seeing more of the face and the details, right? It's still dark. I'm going to say it's still dark. Okay. So the next photo, la siguiente foto, what is the ISO in this photo? What is the ISO in this photo? ¿Cuál es eso? Todos son rápidos. Exacto. Me gusta. 800 ISO, 800 ISO. And as you can see here in the nozzle cavity here, you can start see some of the grain that we're talking about. In this case, because it's digital, we call it noise. There's noise here and over here as well, right? So the next photo is 1600 ISO, right? So I think this one it's pretty good because we have some of the shadows, some of the highlights, and some of the midtones. So this is kind of a good spot. But you can see, because we use a lot of ISO, we still have some of this noise here, right? And then if we continue, I like my billboards, TV and mic. And here you go. This is a 3200. This is what I like of digital. You can go pump it up a lot. But again, you still see a lot of noise here in the, all right? especially you start seeing the background as well. And then we continue to 6,400. So now we just blew it up. It just looks white, right? We lost all the midtones and we have a lot of more noise here, right? So perdimos un chorro de la información de los tonos medios y aparte se quedó súper granulada la foto. Tiene mucho noise. And here, just because I wanted to bump it up all the way that I could, it's 12,800. Now it does look like a bulb. So aquí básicamente perdimos un chorro de información y tenemos un chorro de granulación aquí.
The moment the universe ends.
Yeah, that reminded me of the movie The Terminator when the girl is grabbing the fence and right. Sorry, Skeletor, I didn't want to make fun of you, my friend. So sí, básicamente super iluminado. So now that we know what ISO does, let's talk about the light. What are we trying to achieve with the light, right?
Well,
So,
before we do that,
sorry, yep.
I want to ask the group, um, when you look at like this one that's on the screen right now, are you able to actually see the like the noise, the digital grain, the digital noise? Like if you look at the photo overall, you can tell that it's too bright, but do you see what the noise is doing? Are you kind of understanding that concept? Because that can be a little tricky for people to get.
Yeah. I think if you haven't seen, just in case, here in the lower jaw, here where the teeth are, this hole here, you can start see all these little dots that look like a black and white. That looks
Mhm.
like sand if you think about it.
Yeah. So
Yes,
yeah,
very.
as some of you are pointing out, it is starting to become pixelated. It is
Yes, or
definitely
pixelated.
becoming less clear and blurry, and you
Mhm.
are losing details. Now, that doesn't mean that the photo is a bad photo, though. And I want to make sure that people understand that if you're using a high ISO, it's going to be because you're compensating for either your depth of field, the f-stop, or you're compensating for the shutter speed, right? So there's these three things that are all working together to create this. And if you're taking photos with your phone, let's say, and you suddenly get a very bright photo like this, that doesn't necessarily mean that the photo was taken wrong. It just means that the photo or your camera is compensating for one of the three things that affects how much light is being recorded. So there's some tips that Abraham will go over. But one cool thing about grain is that if you're going for that old film look, that sometimes will help you is to add grain or to create the conditions in which grain can look good, like turning a photo black and white, for example.
Yeah. Some people say they like grainy photos. So far, I'm none of them. My teacher was the same. I love grain, but not me.
It depends, it's a
But
it's a
again,
look.
yeah, and it goes back to the sense of saying like, why are we learning some of these things that are terms or mechanisms that maybe our phones don't use? It's because these mechanisms carry on. Like this is why it looked like when you use film, because it has so many grains, so you can see more of them. That's why we carry to the terms grainy, or sometimes we switch it to noise now because digital. But it's what's happening. It's basically having this like I'm gonna say glitch in the matrix that it's just creating to try to get more light in, right? Because what basically it's trying to get more light. Even though let's say if we're gonna end up here, I just want to show you what the ISO is doing. But let's say you balance it and end up with a photo that looks more balanced, but it's still grainy. It still works, but you're getting the grain because you're trying to compensate for the environment that it's dark, right? In this case, I was just trying to play so I can show you what just the ISO is doing. But once you use all these things that I'm teaching you, and especially the next one that we're going to teach you the next class, you're going to be able to balance all these things because at the end of the day, it's going to be a balance and a balance that's going to have repercussions of the look. If you want a grainy in this case, you may want to bump it up the ISO, right? You want a grainy, or you want it more crisp or I guess cleaner, we can do that, but it depends what you want to do.
And
And
it's also
mhm,
probably worth saying, even though this might be obvious for some, um, when you're shooting film with a film camera, you only get the one ISO that the roll of film that you
there,
loaded into
yes,
the camera has.
yeah,
So, in those particular cases, if you do decide to experiment with film photography, you just have to remember that you can't change your ISO once you load a roll of film. And
yeah,
that means that you have to then begin changing the aperture or the shutter speed to
yeah.
compensate for the speed of the film.
Yeah, once you have film, you're more like set on that
Yes.
specific ISO. As you can see the film here, we have a 100, 200, 400, 800.
Mhm.
And again, that's why I love digital. Suck it, film. You can
Hey, hey,
change
hey,
it.
I like shooting
Anyways,
film.
but I highly recommend everybody to like shoot with film. That's if you want to start doing like more serious photography, that's something you need to do just because it teaches you a lot.
Mhm.
Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Let's continue with this. And this is what we're talking about perfect exposure or exposición perfecta. A light meter is something that your camera or your phone is going to have that's going to try to assist you. And how it's going to assist you is by this. A light meter has to set the exposure for something. So an average value is as good as any. Most things look about right when exposed as an 18% gray subject. The human eye perceives most things as mid-tones. En español, la exposición perfecta, y como lo estaba diciendo, las cámaras, los teléfonos usan este tipo de método que ya viene en la cámara, que te dice que está ya en el lugar correcto. Un fotómetro tiene que establecer la exposición para algo. Por tanto, un valor medio es tan bueno como cualquier otro, ¿verdad? La mayoría de las cosas se ven bien cuando se exponen con un sujeto con un 18% de gris. El ojo humano percibe la mayoría de las cosas como un tono medio. And here you can see the 18% gray, right? Aquí pueden ver el 18% gris. And this is how it's going to look on your camera most of the time. You're going to see this minus or more. Basically, you want it darker or lighter, but it's going to try to give you to the middle. And the middle is 18% gray. La mitad básicamente es 18% gris. Y ahí es donde la cámara te va a intentar acomodar. You don't have to follow what the camera is saying, but it's trying to give you the perfect exposure. And the perfect exposure is because of this, as the photo that I took with the Skeletor, como la foto que tomé en el Skeletor, la cámara va a hacer esto. It's gonna see you have -2, it's too dark. You cannot see highlights. -1, it's getting better, but I don't see the highlights as well. And 0, it's I think, and I feel a little tricky here, but I'm gonna say it's a better exposure because you see the mid tones, the dark, and also you have the high tones like the highlights, right? And the difference is +1 and +2 is going to do the opposite. Instead of losing the highlights, you're losing the black, the shadows, and the actually the dark of the photo, right? So it's going to try to get you in the middle. And it's good to start with that kind of photo so you have all the details of the subject. And later on in post-production, you can start tweak it, unless you already know what you want. But y como lo está haciendo, es bueno antes de, cuando vas a tomar la foto, tomarla en medio para que tengas toda la información de la foto posible y después en postproducción puedes ajustar unas cosas si quieres verlo más oscuro o más brilloso. O solo que sepas exactamente lo que quieres, sí la puedes tomar así, pero normalmente tratamos de tomarla en exposición perfecta que te da todos los detalles posibles, ¿ok? So any questions so far in what perfect exposure is or exposición perfecta? ¿Alguna pregunta? Okay. It sounds like a good crowd. Really good, really good. And so using usando un teléfono. So let's get back into something that most people are using. So regresemos a algo que la mayoría de gente que estamos usando. So the same thing I did with the camera, I use my model here, Skeletor. Usé mi modelo de Skeletor y en mi teléfono hice casi lo mismo que usamos con el ISO para ver la foto. So how do you play with that? Sometimes you have to go to modes and have like a manual mode. Sometimes it's easier just like in this one, in this case, I just press here, see? It's basically, it's gonna show like a light, and depends on the phone, right? Y depende en el teléfono, pero aquí en el mío sale una lucecita que básicamente te da la apretas, so you press it, and it's gonna give you choices. Va a darte este tipo de temperatura o luz. So it's gonna give you temperature and light. Temperature is basically it's how much redder or bluer you want the photo, and you can adjust that, right? And this is before taking the photo. So it's basically telling you how you want to take the photo, right? So it's gonna give you these choices, right? So en su teléfono, si quieren ahorita pueden ver en lo que estamos hablando, su teléfono, dónde está ese feature, dónde está ese tipo de opción en su teléfono. En el mío, como les digo, está acá arriba y dices, a veces le tienes que poner mode o lo que sea. Y that's how you start checking that. And here, same thing I did with the other one. The ISO is basically this. You want it darker, goes all the way to the left, right? And then you have brighter, see? You go all the way to the right. And it just depends on some phones, right? See? But you want to do manual just in case, make sure you're able to adjust yourself, because automatic can work as well, but just letting you know. In this case, the way I shot it, it was this. I went for just a tiny bit warmer, and I did just a tiny bit darker because I want to be able to have the highlights. See here? I had some of the midtones, and the face I have still some over here, and I have dark as well. So I have as much information as I can have, right? So, ¿alguna pregunta hasta ahora? Como les digo, aquí les tomé una foto y lo más le puse un poquito más de calorcito a la foto, que se vea un poco más naranjita, o un poquito más, le bajé un poco de luz, que viene siendo el ISO, el ISO. Okay. Yeah, and for example, my girlfriend's phone, she has like ISO, and you actually can see that, but it depends on the phone. But as long as you know what you're looking for and why, you're gonna understand what. So basically, this is controlling the sensor. Esto básicamente está controlando el sensor que le dice cuánta luz quiere absorber la cámara. Okay. So any questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? Okay. Suena bueno. Okay. I know this is a lot of technical stuff, but it's easy once you start seeing. So now we're gonna start working with some apps, right? So we're gonna start first with Photoshop. So I'm gonna close this for now. Let me stop sharing this. And so again, when you buy Photoshop, usually comes with Bridge, and Photoshop has another thing called RAW, which helps you to open some of the photos, because different, especially fancy cameras, have like files that have more information, so require like this type of program to transfer that information. So the way I'm gonna show you first is how open it on Bridge. So let me see, what is that? So this is how it looks in Bridge. And again, these are the photos that I use for the ISO, see? And this is how I took them. I didn't fix anything on them, see? And another thing you can see is if you go to on the top, it has a couple of basically modes that you can use. It has essentials, libraries, film strip, output, workflow, and metadata. And sometimes it's good to click on metadata because it gives you, see, it tells you the blueprint that we're talking about at the beginning, right? It tells you the camera that it was taken from, and as well as the ISO. See here? So 1,000, I don't know, 12,800. This is how this photo was taken, right? So that's just a little tip. And again, this is how you check it. And which ones of these photos do you guys think is the best or the perfect exposure? Just to, guys, which one do you guys like more? We have a 200, 400, 800, 1,600, 3,200, 6,400, and 12,800. Which ones do you guys think? Let me put my chat. I lost it. 3,200. Okay. Somebody says 800. Okay. Luis, what's your take on this one? Which one you think has a better exposure?
I would probably start off with the one that says 1600 and then work from there.
Yes, there you go, Luis. See? And usually, again, you go again for the middle, right? What you're trying to get the middle point. And here you can see we have 3 here and we have 3 here. So usually the case is go for the middle one, right? It's kind of what your camera is doing beforehand, but here I shot each one, right? So we're gonna open it. Hopefully it lets me show you the open or not. If not, let me stop sharing this.
I do
And
have to
let me
say
stop.
though, everyone that answered in the chat, you're not wrong.
No,
You could start off with the one that is 800, or you could start off with the one that is 3200.
yeah.
And then work from there. It just kind of depends on, again, what your final like vision is for the photo. Uh, and
Yeah.
yeah, like 3200, a little bit overexposed is a good preference if you know that you want the highlights to be a little bit less like pronounced, and you want to have your shadows preserved a little bit more, or at least you want to have your shadows illuminated a little bit more.
So this is kind of like in between before it opens in Photoshop when you open these type of files. And the reason why, because it's raw file, because these cameras take photos and they don't just take the information that you see when you take it, but it takes a lot of extra information that's going to help you play with the image as much as possible. So here we're going to play with some of the stuff that this app lets you do, right? So we have highlights, as you can see here to the right. See, it plays with that. Then it has shadows. See, it has a lot of range because this type of file allows you to stretch more of those things than a regular photo, right? Then we have the whites. It's just gonna play on the whites, right? The whites is basically like a little higher than gray for the purpose of this. And then we have, oh, sorry, black. See? So those are the things we're talking about, light. And this is basically gonna play with the whole thing at once. I usually don't play too much with this one because it doesn't allow you too much of what to choose, but it's basically doing the whole thing at once, which is exposure, when you move exposure, right? And the same thing with the phone we did, it has temperature as well. So you want it warmer or colder, right? I'm gonna go for this. I kind of like it. So that's sort of some of the things you can do in RAW, which is kind of before opening Photoshop. For this one, I'm just gonna lower the blacks a little bit, the shadows, and actually the shadows I like to keep some of that information. Highlights I like more about. Whites I'm gonna lower, so the highlights show a little more. And that's how I'm gonna leave it, right? See all these modifications. Then you open it. Hopefully it lets me show you immediately. Luis, can you see it?
Yep.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So this is Photoshop. And again, you're gonna have some of those options as well. But since we already tweaked that in RAW, I'm gonna show you how to do more focus areas so you can play with that. So basically you go to layers, and when it says new adjustment layer, I'm gonna go just for bright, right? I'm gonna put okay, and it's gonna create, you see on the bottom corner to the right, it's gonna create another layer. And usually I just see here the information here, you can tag it, and I'm gonna just make it darker. And also gonna do contrast just because of that, right? And it's just like, okay, this just affecting the whole image. Yes. But what I'm gonna do is now we're gonna Control E, and it's gonna flip the layer here. It just made it dark, right? And by choosing this tool, basically I use something like a brush, and I'm gonna make it bigger so you can see. Can you guys see the brush? Luis, can you see the brush?
Mhm.
See? Now, because the brush, I'm gonna turn it into white here, or you can do different ways, but this is the fastest. White, it's gonna affect the black layer that we created that has that information. So, see, it's making the image that I just is using the brush as the way to affect the image, right? So that's how I'm gonna try to do this, right? Or maybe make it more dramatic, right? Go here. And that's one way you can control light, a little more control in certain areas, right? And again, this is before, this after, right? And you can do it the same way. You want to make it brighter, right? This is the area of the affected, right? But you get the point, right? It's a little advanced, but it's still, it's a good tool if you want to modify your photos a little bit in terms of light, okay? And for that, I'm gonna stop sharing this unless you have has a question. If somebody has a question?
No questions, but I do want to also
Mhm.
mention that Adobe also has what's called Lightroom, and Adobe Lightroom is very, very similar to Photoshop, but without the ability to photo manipulate. So Lightroom is more specifically for editing photos, as opposed to creating photographic compositions or like photo collages or illustrations. So if you really only want to do just photo editing with advanced photo editing features, then I would recommend doing Adobe Lightroom over Camera Raw. Um, Although Camera Raw is very effective too, and Photoshop obviously gives you a ton of other tools that are useful if you're trying to create artwork. Uh,
Yeah, for me, I choose that one. I kind of like, but when you use a lot of photos at the same time, usually
mhm.
people go for Lightroom.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
when I've done
Mhm.
weddings or when I've done like the most recent gig that I did was prom photos. I used Adobe Lightroom to be able to just mass edit a bunch of photos. It was way
Yeah,
faster.
yeah. I just tend to be more time consuming, so I like that kind of because this is more specific.
Yeah,
But
way more
so, and I
perfect.
wanted to just show you like this is kind of Photoshop's a little more technical, a little more professional, but you can also do it in Snapseed. And this is what I wanted to show you the hard way first. And Snapseed, as we talk about, if you haven't got the Snapseed thing, check our previous video on what was Luis? Just camera stuff that we did before, like two
The,
classes before, something like that.
the snapshots of South Central.
Yeah. But so
Yeah.
here again is my model. And I took the photo. This is the photo I took that we just took before. Remember the one that I just adjusted and all that. So after you take the photo, I mean, you open your app, and usually you goes for edit, and it's gonna be your different options, right? What option you want for this is just depends on what kind of apps you have. But for this one, we want to try the Snapseed because the one we're talking about, right? When you open it, it's gonna look like. And then, sorry, I put looks, but then I fixed it. So it's tools. You go to tools. And after you go to tools, it's going to be you options, a lot of options. But since we're just talking about light today, go to tune image. And here's going to give you options, right? If you here in the bottom, click that one or some, it's going to be you brightness, contrast, highlights. So you can do that as well. As you can see here, you go all the way to the left. It's going to make it darker. This is for brightness or contrast, saturation. It gives you those options, right? And then, see, this is how I left it. And you go again, and now you can go to highlights. You feel like your highlights need help. See, you go up higher, right? And then you click it again, and now you go to for shadows. You want to play with the shadows. In this case, I just toned them down. I just went darker, right, with the shadows. Then once you have that, this is just played a little bit with it because at the beginning we have good image. but I just want to show you what you can do first. And then, as we did with Photoshop, you can also create like more you can choose the spots that you want to cover, right? In this case, you go to the same thing, right? You go to tools. Instead of going to tune image, you're going to go to selective. You're going to click selective. And here is going to create like a brush that we did before. It's going to cover around this area. You can adjust the space as well, how much of the area you want to cover. In this case, I went something like around this much. And this one went into contrast, but you can change like shadows or exposure or something like that. So you can adjust those things, see which ones you like. I just went darker. And I did a bunch of those spaces here, spaces there. And at the end, after all these modifications that I did, right, see, you choose the spot and then you just focus on the spot, like how much brightness, how much shadows or darker you want it, right? And after that, I went and have this photo. This is how I ended up. And this is just a snapseed, right? So I took a lot of the spaces here. So I basically took care of the background. I took it off by just darkening it. And also I added the shadows over here on the bottom, just by doing the selective. Selective here, selective there. And there you go. You end up with something a little more finished or it feels a little better, right? Any questions on Snapseed? It's kind of the same process we did, but I think it's a little simpler and more accessible because this program is free. So, como le estaba diciendo, esto lo haces en Snapseed, básicamente como Photoshop. Usas los pasos lo abres, pones aquí, te salen opciones para ajustar canto brillante, contraste, saturación, ambiente, highlights, shadows, todo eso. Y juegas con eso y terminas con una imagen que después puedes utilizar. Y para enfocar en áreas, solamente te vas a lo mismo, a Tools, y después escoges Selective, y ahí escoges un espacio, lo puedes modificar, qué grande o chico, pues contraste, luz, todo eso. Y al final de modificar varios, le pones Done, y terminé con esta foto. Okay, so just step by step, you'll get that. Okay, any questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? And again, if you follow the video, you can just modify your photo as easy as that. Like you feel like it's too many steps, you can just follow step by step, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
And
For anyone not watching the chat,
oh,
Carolyn shared that the Snapseed app crashes
oh,
on
it
her
does.
iPhone, but it sounds like it might be large raw files.
Okay.
So if you're using, like, say, a digital SLR or a
Mhm,
new digital mirrorless camera, one of the more like professional grade cameras that has a very, very high resolution,
mhm.
a raw file, it's like a digital
It's
negative.
super heavy.
Yeah. And those types of files can overwhelm the app. So if you're shooting on, something like that and then editing with Snapseed, you might get crashes. The app might freeze and
Mhm,
crash. But a solution to that is to either downsample your photos, and use JPEGs instead of raw files, or you can just edit straight out of the camera and then do final modifications with your phone or tablet, whatever you're using. But
Yeah, for example, you have a bigger file, you can make it smaller, like Luis is saying. So that's also a possibility. There's some apps that also downsize your photo or make them into JPEGs. JPEGs, the only things they have less of the range that you can modify. In this case, I just used the kind of file, which is probably a JPEG that my camera used. That's
Mhm,
why it didn't have any troubles. Because
yeah,
when I use this app, I just use it for the photos that I have here, or JPEGs that I took with my camera, my original camera, and downsize. So yeah, that's gonna help you.
yeah, and yeah, if it's a problem with uploading, doing batch edits, like multiple edits of photos,
Oh
then
no, that's
yeah,
no.
that could also be just because of the size of the file.
Yeah, I wouldn't use batch photos for a Snapseed. That's for sure. Just
Yeah,
as for
but
single images, I think.
mm,
Unless maybe you're working the computer, but I wouldn't recommend that.
yeah, in my experience though, Snapseed is a pretty effective
Mm,
app. especially if you're taking photos with your phone.
Yes.
I mean, that's ultimately what it's designed for. It can handle bigger files, but only to a certain degree. So,
Mhm.
just kind of, I guess, be aware of that if you're taking photos with a more professional grade or prosumer grade camera.
Yeah, and again, you can just downsize the photo and just make it smaller, and that will also help. It just depends on where you're gonna put it. In this case, scenes they're not as big, so
Yeah.
maybe you can just make it just a tiny bit smaller, and that sometimes helps as well.
Mhm. But I'm glad you're
Okay.
enjoying it otherwise.
Yeah, it's a lot of things you can do with photography,
Mhm.
and just want to try to show you like the easiest ways you can do is again for Photoshop. I will say like you have fancy camera, go for Photoshop and stuff like that. And for phone stuff, I will use Snapseed. That's what I try to use most of the time. So let's move into today's quote. And so it goes. We are told to let our light shine. And if it does, we won't need to tell anybody it does. Lighthouses don't fire cannons to call attention to their shining. They just shine. And this quote from Dwight Lyman Moody. He was born February 5, 1837, and passed away December 26, 1899. Also known as D.L. Moody, was an American evangelist and publisher connected with a lot of schools and Bibles. I want to mention the whole thing. Y la cita del día de hoy va así. Se nos dice que dejemos que nuestra luz brille. Y si lo hace, no necesitaremos decirle a nadie. Los faros no disparan cañones para llamar la atención sobre su luz, su brillo. Simplemente brillan. Y esta cita viene de Dwight Lyman Moody. Nació el 5 de febrero de 1837 y murió el 26 de diciembre de 1899. También conocido como D.L. Moody, fue un evangelista y fundador de muchas escuelas y grupos bíblicos. ¿Qué piensan acerca de esta cita? What do you guys think about this quote? And you can unmute yourself if you guys like. I think that's the easiest way to chat.
Nettie?
I like the quote, especially the part that says lighthouses don't fire cannons to call attention to their shining, they just shine. And sometimes we forget that we gotta shine.
Definitely. Erica also added that it's a beautiful quote and that it's so powerful.
Hmm. Thank you, Erika. ¿Alguien más que tenga opiniones acerca de esta cita? Somebody else who has thoughts on these quotes? Or we keep ourselves small when we need to shine? Hmm. Luis, what this quote told you, like brought to you?
To me, it sounded a little bit like, the humble brag, right? You don't have to brag about your light shining. It just does.
Oh,
Yeah, I kind of like that. But
to
I
make
also
others
appreciate the
comfort.
interpretation of,
Mhm.
it's about like more like taking action and just doing something rather than talking about how much you do it, right?
Mm.
Uh that's where
Oh,
I get
Alex
like the
also
humble
said,
brag. Yeah,
yes,
let it speak
definitely.
for
And you're
itself.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alex says, "Let's speak for itself."
Mhm. Yeah.
And what it gave to me was like the term "show don't tell" kind of situation, especially in literary words. It's kind of like just do it. You don't have to explain it too much. You just have to let it be, right? Yeah, or just do like Nike. So Nike,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Clear as
Clear as crystal. Yes. Yes, it's sometimes you have to just let your art or what you're trying to say do it with the most basic or the most raw thing just to give your message across instead of trying to over explain it sometimes, I guess. Okay. I guess everybody got into the mode of this. Good. So for now, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let somebody read this poem I created, and the photo as well. So hopefully you can read it in English, and then I have the Spanish version as well. So alguien va a leerlo en inglés y después una persona en español. So who wants to be the sacrifice for this one? Oh, I also have to probably make it bigger, right?
Yeah, I think that might help.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No volunteers, or should I just pick somebody from the bunch?
I'll do it.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know who said it, but go for it. Sorry. Can't see
River.
everybody. Oh,
Go ahead,
River.
River.
Awesome.
Contain. Only the rational brain fools itself. Dark. Only the hidden mark rules itself. Gray. Only the brave pray. Deny it or make peace with it. At day's end, worms devour the freeman. All demon, all flesh.
Thank you very much, River. That was pretty great. I love hearing myself, my poems. Okay. En español, por favor, necesita un voluntario, un sacrificio para este.
Como que se te olvidó la cita, güey. Gray takes the blame. Cool how you open each paragraph. Said. A ver, pues te lo leo ahora.
Gracias, Luis. Gracias.
Título Recipiente por Abraham Jaramillo. Contenido. Solo el cerebro racional se engaña a sí mismo. Oscuro. Solo la marca oculta se gobierna a sí misma. Gris. Solo los valientes rezan. Niégalo o haz las paces con ello. Al final del día, los gusanos devoran al hombre libre. Todo demonio, toda carne.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, what do you guys think about this one?
River loves it.
Thank you, River, very much. 100.
And of course, we already heard Nettie. Nettie likes how you opened each paragraph.
Oh,
Each
I see the
stanza.
contain dark gray. Okay.
Ujú. Línea favorita de River, los gusanos devoran.
Yeah. Exacto.
It's good. Erica adds that it's nice. Mojde added be gray as good. At the same time, difficult, difficult.
Oh,
Gusta la forma, the shaping.
oh, the form of the poem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Carolyn wrote, I enjoy the image that goes along with the poem. And Alex added, he loves the structure.
Thanks. And so, as you can see, like the whole thing we're trying to define right now is light. And again, this portrait I basically took, I think it was in my room, and I used basically a light on top to get this kind of creepy effect and a lot of play with shadows. I think that's the point on this photo, and from then the poem came later. And so let's continue. Let's see what we can do with this, right? Unless anybody has any questions.
Mojde added, the darkest part is the hidden and the brain part.
Yes. Welcome to the dark side, people.
And so is the lightest, according to Carolyn,
Ah.
which is the heart.
Oh. And so, with that being said, we have this other photo. And for this one, we're going to do an exercise. And just so I want to make sure. As a class, we're going to create a poem for this photo. Each student will add a line. Make sure you wait until the next person finish the line, and then the next person gonna create the other one. So we have some really follow up. We don't just want like random sentences, right? So, como les estaba diciendo, vamos a un ejercicio como clase, vamos a crear un poema para esta foto. Cada estudiante agregará una línea. No olvidemos esperar para que escuchar la primera línea para después seguir y vaya con la que vaya. O sea, que no nos esperemos a que la persona acabe su línea, la leemos Después la siguiente persona la va a hacer para que no sea un mix de líneas que no tienen sentido. Okay. So again, we're gonna use the chat for now. So in this case, yeah, la luz, exacto. Somebody's getting the hang of this, River. Yeah, we're going to the light side. No. So the way this is gonna work, I'm gonna name somebody. I'm gonna let them write the first line, and then after that, I'm gonna give the next person. So that's the fastest way. So I know like which one is first, next, and then I'm gonna create a poem that hopefully Luis can copy and paste from the chat. So do not touch the chat for now. If you have questions, you can speak up, but the chat is gonna be solely for the poem. Okay. So let me check the list. I'm gonna go by list. See who's going to start this poem. Oh, well, since we have a host today, we're going to use the host just to give us the first line. Luis, give us the first line.
I'm over here trying to set up so I can copy the lines.
I know.
Let's see.
I like to complicate things.
Okay, there's our opening line.
Okay. The first line, a todo color, to all colors. We did the two versions here, Spanish and English. Nice, Luis. Okay. So
Yes.
whoever wants to follow, oh, no, hold on. I had the list. Sorry, my bad. The next person is Alex. Sorry. Okay, we're gonna go for March Day, but March Day after that. Okay. So we have the next line is sun gives light to happy moments. So far we have at todo color or to all colors, sun gives its light to happy moments. Now we have Alex. Your turn. Go for it. Oops. And whenever you're ready, just type it and send the message, and we'll go for the next person. Okay. Let it warm us into vibrancy. That is the next line. And for the next one, we have Astrid. Astrid, give us your line. So far, we have to all colors. Sun gives its light to happy moments. Let it warm us into vibrancy. Just again, just in case you didn't hear me, Astrid is the next one. Is Astrid here by the? So I don't know. Oh yeah, she's here.
Putting people on the spot can sometimes
I know.
give a little little pause.
And thanks much again. I'm gonna read again. Might as well. To all colors, sun gives its light to happy moments. Let it warm us into vibrancy.
Do you have a question, River?
River, you can speak or
No, just a line ready if someone needs more time to think.
hold on. Are we ready, Astrid? Any chance? Okay. Oh, I guess
we can
River, you can take that spot then. Then we'll see. Because sometimes I don't know if people's on the chat or they went to get some breakfast. I don't know. Lunch,
at this
dinner.
time.
I don't know what time is it.
All right.
Hebras y hijos del júbilo, de julio, de juego, de nos. Oh, there you go. Okay. Thank you, River, very much. Now we have Carolyn.
Can you translate what was said in Spanish?
That's the tricky one. How will you translate that, Luis? I'm trying to make sure for that one. Like strings.
Yeah, see los it's like believe the herbs and the strings of Jubilee of July of games of us.
Yeah, but it's hebras. Hebras is like the parts of the string, I think.
Strands and threads.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we have Caroline. As we go hand in hand, step by step, we move together. Oh, nice. Okay. Thank you, Caroline. Then we have Eric. Eric, what do you have for us? No pressure.
Is it Erica or Eric?
Eric. Sorry, I know.
Very similar.
Yeah. But I guess we can make it into a race. Who's faster, Erica or Eric?
It's not a competition.
But I'm winning. By the way, is Eric here? Just making sure. Oh, there you go. In steps, somewhat cautious, however, steadfast. Ah, yes, I like the movement.
Mhm.
Excellent. Now we have, next is Erica. Wow, definitely is trying to get you guys same page. And with all of this, there is a fake smile on my face, still and always forever trying to fit in. Ooh, it's getting dark again. Yes. Okay. Then we have Nettie.
Okay, let me think. Let me think about something.
No rush, but tick tack, tick tack, tick tack. Fit in. Let me hold your hands. Dance and clap. Dance and smile. Dance and live. Nice. Pam pam. Thank you very much, guys. Luis, do you have the whole thing?
I got it. And Moshe
you read it?
added one last line.
Oh, one last. Okay, hold on. Okay, Luis, can you read it? So we have a closure to this one because I want to make sure
All right.
at least we hear it.
So I'm going to use Mojde's last one as the title.
Okay.
So dancing in light like butterflies up and down, an exquisite corpse poem. A todo color, to all colors, sun gives its light to happy moments. Let it warm us into vibrancy. Hebras y hilos del júbilo, de julio, de juegos, de nos. As we go hand in hand, step by step, we move together. In steps, somewhat cautious, however steadfast. And with all of this, there is a fake smile on my face, still and always, forever trying to fit in. Fit in? Let me hold your hands, dance and clap, dance and smile, dance and live.
Wow. Wow, guys. You guys are awesome. Okay, that worked out pretty well, guys. And good thing because that's gonna lead us to the favorite part of this class. Oh, oh no. What is it? Hold on. Did I lost the homework? Oh no, hold on. I think the homework is on the bottom, but I'm gonna show you a couple examples just before give you the homework. But some more examples of light, and just because of sake of time, I might not spend as much time. But here's one photo again. This is by Mark O'Grady. Okay, and you can see in the handout more of the info that comes with it, just because we're running a little bit out of time. And here we have another photo by Ellen von Unworth. Okay, as you can see, we have dark and bright, so it's more like more of the light occupies the image, and here's more of the dark occupies the image. It's a little contrast on this one. And then we have this one, which I can really love a lot. This is by Joel Santos. Okay. And again, you can see more of the information later on the files. Here's another photo. This is by Lilia Vera. It's a different kind of light that we have here. And so I wanted to leave you with the homework. So for the homework, take 2 photos, one using the theme of good, and the second photo using the theme of evil. Use light to tell the story, feeling, or concept, right? Then using in class, which is Photoshop or Snapseed, adding the photos to emphasize or correct or decrease the lighting on your photo. And again, you don't have to do a lot of touches, but just play with it, see if it can help you get the photo where you want it to be, right? Then finally, write a poem for each photo. So we're gonna have the poem for good and the poem for evil. And basically you're gonna use light to help you tell this poem or accompany the poem that you're gonna create for each one, right? As an option, since we have submissions coming up for the art block, you can submit the 2 pieces because they go with the theme that we're going for, which is good/evil. And here is the link. I'm gonna copy and paste on the chat. Oh, you have it already, please?
Yep. Yeah, I already did that.
Okay, there you go. Because that one leads you to that specific one.
Mhm.
Como les estaba diciendo, tarea, tomen 2 fotos. Una con el tema del bien y la segunda foto con el tema del mal. Utilicen la luz para contar la historia, el sentimiento o el concepto, utilizando los 2 programas, uno de los 2 programas, no tiene que ser uno. Usa Photoshop o Snapseed para editar las fotos, corregirlas, disminuir la luz, aumentarla. No tiene que ser mucho, pero trata de utilizarlo para ver si les ayuda a corregir o a que su foto se vea mejor. Después, finalmente, escriban un poema para cada foto. So, van a tener un poema de bien y otro de mal, y van a usar la luz o la oscuridad, o el tema va a ser que van a usar la luz para decir su poema, ayudarles a ilustrarlo. Y opcional, por favor, si ya lo van a hacer, de una vez sumítalo o póngalo en el art block scene. Es el tema que estamos usando, es bien/mal. So, aquí está ¿cómo se llama? El link, y lo pueden ver en el chat también. So, any questions so far on the homework? ¿Alguna pregunta para la tarea? Is there any question for the homework?
Submissions to Art Block Zine are free, the same as for Conchas y Café Zine. If you do submit to Art Block and your work is included in the zine, you will get a free copy. And you can submit it also to Conchas y Café Zine, and it will also be published there too. So you have both as an option.
Mhm.
And then
Oh yeah, the photo is separate to the poem. So don't worry about putting them together. Maybe towards the end of the class, I can help you if you want to put it in next, like I did in the photo. But for now, just send the photo and the poem. Send the photo by itself and the poem as well, like the Word document or whatever document, and then the image document, which is usually a JPEG, right? And try to send it as best quality as you have, right? So, and from that will work, like how to put it into the scenes, okay? Because we're still gonna work on it anyways.
mhm,
Okay.
de nada.
Okay. And any questions? ¿Alguna más pregunta? Or while you guys think of another questions, I'm gonna show you a couple more examples that I found on the internet. Just going on the internet, I found these cool images. This is a series of photos that I found by Ivani's photography. I think the theme is Ouija, but here is again, we're playing with light. It's just a simple light, and it gives you that kind of a sense, right? Right now, you don't see as much, but then you start seeing the rest of the photos, and it starts to get creepier. There
It's
you
definitely
go.
a cool series.
Then this one. And again, just black and white, as it's a simple light. See, maybe you can use some type of editing to create eyes or things like that. But if you want to do that, let us know. Maybe we can help you. But see, this one doesn't have too much of light, but I want you to focus more on lights or dark or light. But this is just to show you what you can do. This is a living room. And the cool thing about these ones is I like, because they're dancers, they're just using the natural body flexibility that dancers use to kind of give you the sense of like being possessed and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting way of using their talent to tell a story as well, right?
Mhm. To
Like this one. Look at
answer,
that.
to quickly answer River's question, when you upload a photo to Submittable, um, really the best way to know if it's print ready is to submit the highest resolution file possible. So if it's like, say, from a cell phone, If it's like say 8 megapixels or higher, then it will definitely be print ready. It'll print just fine. If you're submitting something that is closer to 2 megapixels, or if it's say downloaded off of Facebook or Instagram, those are very low resolution files and usually will not scale up to be a bigger resolution. So
Yeah.
as long as it's the native file, that's the best way to know that it's print ready.
Yep. And again, right now we just need I will say hold on for the submitting for the art block, but still have that ready because we're gonna work on the poems later. So when we're working on the poems, we are gonna also start editing some of the details on the photo. We're gonna give you tips once we're in class. So you still have probably some work to do with that. And so once you have that, we're going to be able to say, oh, you can send this file. But again, try to send us the file. There's the original file or the file that you work on without going to Instagram or things like that. Like just take the photo, use the apps and don't change anything. And then just send us that. Don't do anything else. Like unless you have super high resolution photo, like some of you guys said that had trouble with Beto or no Beto, what's it called? Snapseed.
Snapseed.
Maybe reduce it, but not too much. Okay.
Let's see, do we need to make sure our phones are at a certain resolution, or does the phone do it automatically when we take our pictures? Most phones out of the box will be set up to take photos at the highest resolution. Of course, you can always check, to make sure using the settings panel or the settings app that your phone has, because then you can go into the camera app settings and then determine whether or not it's shooting at its maximum resolution.
Yes.
Uh,
And again, always know what kind of phone you have. So try to figure that out first. Then you can start Googling or going to YouTube if you feel like, okay, I don't know how to look for this function. It's always good to know, like, oh, function, how to look for this function. And YouTube, you go, and it's going to give you some of those tips as well. If not, you can ask us and we'll try to figure it out together, but try to do that first and then we'll see.
Yeah.
Because I know it's a lot of phones, a lot of cameras, so each one has its own weird ways of working.
Yeah.
But they have some similarities. So like Luis is saying, if you go for settings, then you go to resolution or quality of photo, it will give you those choices depending on the phone, but it's still that kind of language.
And the larger the megapixels, then the higher the resolution, and the more likely it is to have a good print resolution. And because this particular assignment is asking you to do 2 poems and 2 photos,
Yeah.
We will give you the full weekend. So you can submit your work to your cohort as late as Sunday night. But please try to submit it no later than Sunday night to your cohort. You'll also be receiving a follow-up email to just update the cohorts, and eliminating the people that have not been actively submitting up to this point. So the cohorts might change just a bit, and keep an eye out for that. That email will go out by the end of the week, by Friday.
My suggestion also, because I know this is a little bit of a more homework and might be also complex in the terms of finding the lighting and creating the poem and maybe editing. So try to finish one first. And then when you have the time, hopefully you finish the other one, but at least don't try to do 2 tasks at the same time. I'll say finish one, then the other one, just in case. So at least we have something to work on Tuesday. Okay. I know it's a little trickier, but I feel like it gives you that kind of sense of what you can do with light in 2 different scales, right? And again, you play with that notion, light and those terms of good and evil.
So yeah, once again, we're going to give you until Sunday to complete the homework. And then by Friday evening, you'll be receiving an email with updates to the cohort assignments, all of that stuff.
And Caroline says, can I be added to one?
Yeah,
I don't know what that one is. Or like, okay.
Cohort.
Yeah. We'll see. Okay, I see.
So all that's going to be taken care
of. Okie dokie.
All right.
And I know we stretched a little bit, but we have a lot of info to cover and a lot of cool photos to show you.
Mhm.
I love this series, man. It's
Yeah.
got creepy.
Can you put in the chat the name of the photographer that last
Which one?
series came
Oh, the
from?
last one? Oh, yeah, because that one is not in the
Yeah, that one's not on the
hand
handout.
file. Yeah, I know. Hold on.
And so the
Here's
handout
Mhm.
itself, at least a version of the handout, a PDF version, will be shared on Google Classroom for those of you that are fully enrolled, along with the video of tonight's session. So if you want to, review the video later, you'll be able to access it in the next day or so, along with the handout, minus this last set of photos
yeah.
that we're looking at. But if not, otherwise you can always check out the Instagram that Abraham just added to
Yeah.
the
And again, this
the
is
chat.
for Instagram. And again, I don't think you have to have Instagram to use it. I mean, like you can find him probably.
Yeah.
Evans Photography. And I don't know exactly the name of the series, but he mentioned Cuija. So just in case you're trying to look for it, this is kind of maybe you're looking for it. He usually or she, I don't know who's that takes photos of dancers. So, but this was a cool series. Probably they did for Halloween that I really like. Oh, so creepy. Cool. Imagine you go for a babysitting kind of gig and then these kids show up.
Yeah. All right. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and say our good nights. Thank you once again to everyone that joined us on Zoom. Those of you that are fully enrolled, again, will have the benefit of us giving you feedback on your not only poetry, but also photography. And we are available through Google Classroom to answer questions if you have any questions or if you need any kind of assistance related to the lessons. For everyone that joined us on the Instagram Live, thank you for joining in on Instagram Live. Everybody else is joining in on Facebook, Twitter, and what's the other one? YouTube. Thank you also for joining us there. And we will be hopefully having you join our workshops soon. Also, submissions for the current Conchas y Café zine are actually open. So, as soon as you feel like you're prepared to start submitting your work, you're more than welcome to submit your writing and poetry to Conchas y Café zine for publication later on in the summer. You can learn more by going to distillarts.org/Conchas y Café zine. And thanks again, everyone. I hope you all have a great week. Take the time and really enjoy the process of photography and enjoy the writing process that follows.
Yeah,
Take
play with
care,
it, my
everybody.
friends. Play with it.
Yeah.
Good
And
night.
great job collaborating on the poem. So that'll be featured in
Awesome.
the zine as well.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I'll again you add it to the photo. Perfect.
Yep. All right. Take care, everyone.
Sweet.
Good night.
Good night.